Okay, so welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you
To
so
all
much.
of you. It's so lovely to be in this room. I think, to be surrounded by top talent is quite rewarding. I'm going to enjoy this quite a bit. So I'm Gontse Madumo. So I do talent acquisition at Sasol. I have been interviewing people for a number of years now, and yet again I get another opportunity to do it today, so here we are. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning, maybe with you, Roxanne. If you can just tell us about yourself, what it is that you actually do, and yeah.
So my name is Roxanne. I work at Diageo South Africa, and I am a commercial planning and activation specialist, which in general terms is a trade marketing manager. So at Diageo, we like to do things very differently, and we even change titles because we're just a little bit more special. But I'm a trade marketing manager. My focus is on consumption, so predominantly on our reserve portfolio and brands. And yeah, I think the topic today for me is very important just in terms of my personal journey where I work, but also in my personal capacity. Trust is number one up there. So if I had to say what it means to me and who I am, I think trust, credibility, authenticity, you'll find it in the same line.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that, Roxanne. Jacques, do you want to tell us about
Hi there,
yourself?
guys. I'm Jacques Greeff. As was said, I'm the Operational Excellence Executive for a company by the name of Unitrans Supply Chain Solutions. We are a multinational supply chain solution company focusing predominantly on the supply chain services in the petrochemical industry. Very humbled to be here today. I think I was just saying to Roxanne, slightly intimidating being surrounded by three ladies after the previous talk that took place in this room. So I'm definitely not shoving anything anywhere, just to make that known. But yeah, very humbled to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Great.
Awesome.
And Grace.
Good. Still morning, right?
It is.
Morning, everyone. My name is Grace Olukune. I work at a small company called Eskom. I'm a chief engineer. I've been there now for 12 years. I'm currently working at Kusile Power Station on the project side as one of the technical leads. I've been there now for 3 years. So yes, I live in Joburg, and I commute every day to Kusile Power Station. It's about an hour 15 drive every day, but it's my peace of mind. It's awesome. I've been doing it for 3 years. For me, I think it's what I do is what I enjoy. My job is my hobby. My dad was an engineer. He took me around with him. That's what I did growing up. So I knew what I wanted to be, except the one time I decided I wanted to be an air hostess because I read Anna the Air Hostess. And that's the only time I ever wanted to be something else, and then that changed. So engineering is my passion. It's what I do. It's what I've always done. And for me, when we just on the topic for today, I would say that integrity is who you are when people are not watching. And for me, that's what stands out about that I question myself every time is, am I really a person of integrity when I say I'm a person of integrity? Or is it something I do in a specific area? So integrity should speak to every area of my life. And that's really how I think it carries out in the workplace naturally, yeah.
Okay. So, you've talked a little bit about this, many of you have touched on it, but what does harnessing the power of trust really mean to you? Let's start with you, Jacques.
Our business is going through quite an interesting phase in the sense that we've encountered an amalgamation of 8 smaller companies over the past 12 years, and then in January of this year we decided to go the other way and we split the company right down the middle. So despite the corporate governance and the commercial split that takes place, quite an interesting has taken place in our company in the sense that there's a new culture that has to be created. And I think over the past years, and it's been reiterated in quite a lot of talks that has happened today, is obviously over and above just the trust topic, is your ability to be able to show your vulnerability as a leader in your business. And the God's honest truth is we've done a lot wrong in our company. And the past year is just, eating that humble pie and being able to reconnect with our people and say, yes, we are the executive panel. Yes, it's a 10,000 employee based business. But more importantly, every single person in the company's opinion matters as much as the CEO's. And just really trying to push that through on a day-to-day basis. I am exceptionally passionate about the development of my people and the creation of high-performance work teams. And I think it's more than just doing it at work. It's something that you have to live and breathe on a day-to-day basis. And if you can't show that vulnerability and show that level of being able to bind to the personality that you're engaging with on a day-to-day basis, then all of this is really just talk.
Absolutely. Roxanne, do you want to add on that?
So I think 100%, I agree with you in terms of vulnerability. It's a key player in how we interact with the people that we work with, our teams, but also I think there's a big job on business to do in terms of integrity outside of internal. So when you're able to, as a business, really just showcase what are your values, what does it mean outside of the building, and then bring that to life inside for the people, is where the true power in trust and harnessing that comes. So it's very important for us to make sure that the people we work with, we hold them accountable to, is your integrity something that's always on, or is it specific, and does it get dialed up or dialed on? So make sure that we hold each other accountable as leaders, as employees, but then also as our business as a whole. So from the inside, are you able to call out your CEO and say, what we're saying, what we're doing to the public is not what we stand for.
Yeah.
That's not how we should be seen or perceived. It also talks to how we retain people in the business if they feel valued and they feel like they're seen authentically as more than just an employee, but I am a person when I come to work, so I must trust you enough to be able to share with you what it is that I'm going through, how that impacts my work. There's a lot in authenticity that plays in our integrity and just how credible we are in every interaction in the business, from with our line managers, with our teams, broader teams, and then externally with the public as well.
Absolutely. And speaking about that, I mean, Grace, you work for Eskom, and you know there's been some bad news stories. And how do you bounce back from that? And how do you take yourself back to work every day, knowing that publicity isn't so great, and there isn't much good being said about the organization that you work for?
So I'll start off by saying Eskom's actually a very good company to work for, financially as well. In the real sense, in the integral sense of it. But I think for me, what is key is knowing the part that I play. So I believe that, and we call ourselves Eskom Guardians, I believe that if I see myself as an Eskom Guardian, then I'm going to uphold the values that are there. So yes, there's a small, I mean, if we look at it, it's really a small part of Eskom that has had a major impact on everyone. So if you look at the majority of the organization, you have most people who are honest, hardworking, and ethical. So if that is the person that you are, so I don't get caught up in the sensationalism, and I call it sensationalism because it feels like there's such a negativity around Eskom in general, whereas there's a lot of good news stories. So for me, my role in that case would then be to share the good news, is to keep saying what is the good things that are happening. One of the things that I do in our community, we have a group chat where I live, and of course the lights go off and someone will post a picture of a burning conveyor, which are not related at all. But instead of now taking it personal every time, what I do is I take the opportunity to then educate the people. It's a WhatsApp group, so I'll just share and say, okay, no, the reason this is happening is because of this, if I know what the answer is. But it really is up to me to then create a different image. Media is going to do what media does, and they're going to sensationalize it as far as possible in many cases. So I think my job is to just keep the true story, keep the real, and ignore all the noise. There's always going to be noise. I don't think there's ever going to be a time when everything's going to be perfect, and everyone is going to say, oh my gosh, this is amazing, everything about it is amazing. So I focus on the positive. And I also influence where I see the negative. So I think harnessing trust in the workplace for me also means that when I see someone doing something wrong, I don't just go and talk about them or tell on them, but I have the opportunity to step in and say, okay, do you realize what you're doing is wrong? And give them the opportunity to correct. Because sometimes you don't even realize what you're getting yourself into. It starts with the small things and it becomes a big thing. But I think we should be our brothers and our sisters' keepers in every part, in every sense of the word. Meaning that if I see someone else doing something wrong, or if I see something that's going off, then I have the audacity to actually speak up, and speaking up is a big part of it. And a lot of things go wrong when people don't speak up, because I think if I don't say anything, then I'm as good as the people who are doing the wrong. So I feel like it's my job to step up, to step in, and to tell the good news because there's a lot of good news stories to tell everywhere.
Okay. And speaking about speaking up, you work in quite a male-dominated environment, I would assume. And how do you find your voice as a woman in that kind of environment?
So I sound like a guy, right? Okay, I've been called sir in many phone conversations. But that being said, I think for me, because of the way that my father raised me, I never knew I was a girl. Okay, you know what I mean. There was no differentiation between male and female. And what I've noticed is all that I've had to bring to the workplace is confidence and competence. And I feel like what I do and my work speaks for itself. So if I'm working and I'm doing my work excellently, then it should speak for itself. I don't need to affirm myself as a woman in a male-dominated environment. I have a lot of male colleagues, but I see them as my peers. I don't see them different. If I see another female come into the organization, I will then also try and guide them in the same way if I feel like they're also just, if I feel like they're finding stumbling blocks being in a male-dominated environment. But I've never really felt like it's a thing. I feel like what I put on the table is good enough. And if I'm putting good work, then it will be respected. I have had situations where I've walked into a meeting and the guy's like, "Oh, so are you the administrator?" And I'm the chair and I'm supposedly the lead. But it's because the person who is actually setting it up from my team is a white male. So they expect that the white male is the guy who's the head, and I'm the administrator. And then the facilitator introduced me as the lead, and I could see the look on the guy's face, but it's not my place to now go and say, "You see, I'm a woman," just because I don't have to do that. I let my work speak for itself. I don't need to explain myself, and I don't need to excuse myself to anyone.
Competence and confidence, I like that. Roxanne, have you had any challenges in that regard?
So I think I'm very lucky to work in a space, specifically where I work, where, to your point, it's not really male versus female. Yes, there are instances where, interactions, you can see it come through, but I think the business fosters a equal collaborative, and everyone's seen as equals. So I know in FCMG in the outside, it really is male-dominated, but the comfort I have with where I work is that I do feel every day that my work does speak for itself. So, master your craft, do that, and then have the ability to speak up and be proud of what you're doing. I think that is enough to, whether it's a male or a female, you should be able to individually be able to own your competence, own your craft, and be confident in it. When you're there, there's not much that can really shake you. Obviously, there are outside environments or inside environments where it won't be as easy in different companies for people to navigate around that. But I think that goes back to the previous talk where then that place is not aligned to the values that you then have or what you have to bring. So your craft and your competence, I think that should be enough to drive that. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, you've spoken a little bit about how we no longer really work in silos. It's all about collaboration now. And that takes trust, right? And, speaking on our topic, what is the importance of collaboration and trust, and how do you work along those lines in your areas of work?
So I think collaboration and teamwork it's very difficult because you sit at the center or you sit on the outskirts of a workflow, and the impacts or the results of what other people around you are doing will be impact your bottom line or your end goal. I think when we go and interact with people in this collaborative circles and our workflows, it's important to have shared values. So let's understand, what is it that you need to do that's going to bring me my success, and how do I impact you? When we start thinking in that way, I feel like a lot of our issues will be addressed. I do my part, you do your part, hand over. It's kind of like a relay race, right? How we should constantly be running in collaboration. So when we're all running on the same pace and we're doing the same thing at the right time and the orchestra is moving, you'll find then that the workflows will flow.
I think the dynamic of your team is also constantly changing in the workspace. So the type of team that you're managing today is entirely different to the type of team from a personality, a socialistic perspective than it was 5-10 years ago, which requires you to adapt with the time as well. And there was a lot of talk previously with regards to your ability to constantly learn. You should learn from an academic perspective, and with the room being filled with very talented students, that is important. But you must always be able to pick up that proverbial mirror and look in the mirror and say to yourself, what part outside of my academic knowledge needs to be developed in order to grow forward? And maybe just to touch on the previous point as well, the discrimination against women in companies is a reality, and it's 100% a reality. It cannot be, you cannot question it. I think the thing is, and what resounds on the stage here today and what needs to be reiterated is that if you believe in yourself and your own core capability, then whether you're a guy or a girl, whether you're white or you're black, whether you've got hair or you don't, that shouldn't be the issue as to why you can achieve what you need to achieve. A similar story to Grace. I wasn't asked if I was the administrator. We signed a multi-billion rand deal with a large petrochemical supplier in South Africa. And in our reception area in our company, we've got a fantastic coffee machine. I think if that coffee machine goes under, the company might sink. And I was busy making coffee for my team. It's a thing that I do. And the CEO of the company came in. He walked up. He was substantially older than I was. He tapped me on the shoulder, and he asked if I would help make him a cup of coffee as well. And I made him a cup of coffee. I went in. And just before I went into the general area to go and fetch my team, he asked if I could possibly, while I'm in there, just go and get Jacques Greeff, because the meeting is with him after this. So I walked out, I grabbed my notebook, I spent tea, made sure that everybody was happy with their coffee.
And did
I
you
walked
call
out,
Jacques Greeff?
and I shook his hand, and I said, "Hi, I'm Jacques, how's your coffee?"
Yeah.
And, but I think breaking that mindset, and one thing that I picked up earlier as well was, and I can't remember exactly who said it, I think it was the core speaker of the previous talk. The lady was referring to the fact that she's mentoring 3 women and 1 man. And one thing that kind of struck to me is that when that guy is walking into the office where the mentorship session is walking in, he cannot walk into that room thinking, I'm now going to be mentored by a woman. His thought pattern is, I'm walking into a room to engage with someone that can help me empower myself to improve. The fact that you're a woman or a man is entirely irrelevant. And what makes that exceptionally powerful for me is when you go through the app that you guys created, which I think is so cool for today, if you go through all the credentials of all the people, if you read those credentials and you forget about the fact that they're male or female, it doesn't make it any less impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, every single woman on this stage is more impressive than 95% of my male-dominated friends. I'll kick my ass for saying that. But it's the honest truth, and it's regardless of what your sex is.
Great. Okay. And I mean, we've seen brands collapse or deteriorate because of a lack of trust, really. Consumers decide to, vote with their money, or, and that happens quite a bit. How are you guys protecting your personal brands?
Protecting Eskom's brand.
Your personal brand.
Or my brand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should light on it.
I know. So for my personal brand, for one, it always starts with who I am and knowing who I am before anyone else comes to define who I am. Because I think people are going to come and tell you who they think you are, what they think you've done, what they think you've done right, what they think you've done wrong. And yes, you're not perfect. I know I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes here and there. But it really is having confidence in who I am and what I do, and what I'm able to do, knowing my weaknesses, knowing my strengths. And in that environment, should someone come and correct me, I know what my weakness is. So if they're correcting a weakness, I can tell, yeah, sure, I know that's something that I need to build on. But one of the things that I've learned is to respect anyone, irrespective of what role, title that they have. I think if I listen to everyone who comes and says something to me, then I realize that I'm going to grow. Yes. And the one thing that I've learned is the ladder that or the people that you step on to go up are the same people who can pull you down. So here's one thing that I've always said. For me, for example, at the office, the PA is more important than the boss, yes, if I need to get anything done. Because I know if I have favor with this person, then I'm going to have access to the person that just needs to give me what I need. So it's also learning how to interact with different people. Now, when I go there, I'm not doing it just for, oh, you're the PA, it's not like a bribery, corruption type of thing. It's a genuine, I want to get to know, and it usually ends up, so I'm a very relationship-orientated person. So everything starts with a relationship. I don't feel like I should ask anything of you unless I have a relationship with you. of sorts, whether it's platonic, professional, irrespective. So it's really building relationships that are authentic, and me being authentic in those relationships, and me being genuine in what I present. And I think in that case, then, when people see me, they see is what they get. I don't think we should be different people in different environments. If they meet me on a street or, in a different environment or at the workplace, they should see the same person. And I think if that's the brand that I'm carrying, then the trust follows through, and irrespective of what's happening around, no one's going to question the person that I am. They'll say, okay, no, so someone will always say something about you, and if they say, no, Grace did this in this organization, someone else who knows you will step up and say, no, I know Grace, she doesn't do that. Yes. That is not her style. So I think being authentic and being real is my personal brand, and having authentic relationships with people.
I do think that the company's brand is nothing more than the culmination of all the people that work for it, and that's tying up with what Grace is saying. It's what we try and we've got this initiative, and I was speaking to Kathleen about it a little bit earlier, one of my fellow finalists. We started this. It's actually a really silly thing, but it's such a profound impact on our business. It's 5 minutes every week, and we haven't failed for the last 38 weeks. I take my cell phone, I walk around the company, I pick up spots, whether it be the creditors, the receptionist, the cleaning ladies, the CEO. I switch my phone on, and it's a 5-minute selfie interview with that person. Tell me where you're at, what's important on your heart, where you're currently standing, and being able to integrate with those people and really understand what makes each of them tick. That, if you put all of that together, that's the brand. So we had this very dramatic situation earlier in the year. So we split the company. Our CEO is a man that I respect. I have utmost respect for him. He's got a very unique style of doing things. But he's phenomenally good at what he does. We had this big elaborate session where our company vision and our mission and our strategy is all printed on the main boardroom. That boardroom has now been split between the two businesses. How these were taken off the wall, like kind of taken to an area and ripped up. And what was said was, yes, it's a business that's run for 32 years. The business is not the writing on the wall. The business is not the size of the logo of the brand. The business is the people. Yeah. And if you can connect with the people and gain the trust of the people, then whether you got trucks or petrol or warehouses or ships that you export becomes less relevant to the fact that the people want to be there. And that's how you build a brand.
So for me, my personal brand, I think I've struggled with it for some time to understand what it means, how to build it, how to maintain it. And in conversation with someone a few weeks ago, I asked the question, and the advice I was given to just always be yourself. And I think from a personal brand perspective, when you're authentic, when you are very clear in who you are, what you stand for, and what you're willing to push for, you be yourself in every instance, every situation. That will then talk for itself. And I think the PR and the marketing of your own brand will live through your actions, your interactions, and how you put yourself out to the world. So I think managing your personal brand, it's be yourself, and the rest will follow.
And your energy always introduces you before you walk into the room.
Absolutely.
I've always believed that. So if you walk into a room and you're upbeat and you're there to actually feel that you have a positive enlightenment with the crowd and you want to engage from a positive perspective, that also speaks to what your personal brand is. Yeah.
Okay. And then in the session with Tiger Brands, they mentioned the importance of innovation, to their brand. And innovation, to be innovative, you need to trust, once again. It goes back to that. How are you guys fostering innovation and creating safe spaces for people in your teams in order to innovate and bring your company forward, take it forward?
I think for me on my team, with my team on the project, I think as everyone knows, there's financial constraints in our organization. I don't think that's a secret. But what we've had to learn to do is, as an engineer, for me, it's the whole thing of design to cost, as opposed to cost to design. So in other words, what it means is that I need to look at what I do have available and then determine what I can do with it in the most innovative way. So it's no longer a wish list, it's no longer pie in the sky, it's no longer a Rolls Royce, it may be a Toyota, but that's fine as long as it's fit for function. And it delivers the performance that it needs to. So it's really just allowing people to work in a space where they understand the constraints within what we have to work with, and work with it. You have what you have. You don't have what you don't have. So it's really just, we are forced to be innovative, even if it's not something that came naturally. And we are finding that there's also a lot of opportunities to cost save in innovation. So for us, it's really around that. It's looking at how do we provide solutions that will meet the requirements and will be fit for purpose within the constraints that we have as an organization. And I'm finding that it's making us think out of the box a little more, when it's not business as usual. Every day is business unusual, but we have to do what we have to do to get it done. So at the end of the day, you guys want to be able to flick that light and it needs to come on. However we do it, you probably could care less as long as it's legal.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess it's a case of challenge versus opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I think what we face in South Africa, and again speaking to the young leaders in the room, is that we kind of have this sense in the back of our mind that you can grow and be the best of your ability in South Africa. But that's not the truth. We had the opportunity to present in San Diego earlier this year at an innovation conference for a software technology that we developed that we have installed in our fleet. It's a camera that basically looks at you, it sees what the height of your shoulders are, it identifies where your eyes and your nostrils are, and with infrared lighting, it sees where you're looking at all time. So when you're driving and you're getting tired, there's a slouch of your shoulders, there's a nodding of your head. The truck then dials in and says to the driver that he needs to wake up and manage fatigue. The story that I want to tell is, going to San Diego, Microsoft was presenting, Google was presenting. If I say we were nervous, it's probably the biggest understatement of the day, because I'm based in Cape Town. You're going to this world where you're literally going to Silicon Valley to sell a software that a couple of developers developed in Cape Town. And leaving there was one message in my mind. We have zero, nothing, not a thing to stand back for. The capability and the intellect that we have in our country matches world class all around the world. I think the biggest difference between the Americans, and I'm sorry if I hope I'm not offending anybody by saying that, the difference between us and the Americans where this development is happening at such a large scale is that because they think they're the best.
Yes.
And that mindset is all it takes in order for you to be able to drive the innovation through to a company. Yeah.
True.
So for me, working in alcohol and spirits, I think we have the opposite, where we have the opportunity to constantly just refresh new ideas, knock on the door, and a check will be written for you. So for my team and I think we thoroughly enjoy being given the opportunity to say, this is your deliverables, this is your KPI, go and solve the problem. Whether it's going to cost 5 Rand or 10 Rand, we'll find it, we'll solve it. And I think that gives people the confidence, or my team the confidence, to be able to want to input, to go and think outside of the box, look at what is available, what we can use to innovate how we show up with our customers, with our consumers. So we're on the opposite scale at the moment, but I think the intent is the same in that we have a problem to solve or we have something to deliver. Do your best, go out, find the best solutions, and in that, empower yourself with skills that you probably would not have, needed to acquire the day before.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know it's still early days for you guys, but what are some of the benefits that you've already reaped with Rising Star or are hoping to reap with Rising Star?
I'll let Jacques go first.
I had an interview with Forbes magazine on Wednesday from New York.
Wow.
So Forbes magazine is doing a research article. It wasn't a very pleasant piece. They're doing a research article on the xenophobic attacks on transporters in South Africa and how that's impacting on investment from a macroeconomic perspective. But again, just maybe tying up perfectly with the previous comment, it's a WhatsApp interview with a panel. They do a bit of a briefing before the time. Now, I'm a pretty small-time guy from Cape Town. It's like to sit in this room, firstly, everybody speaks in a weird accent, and you kind of have to hear what they're saying. And they started this whole briefing about nothing will be quoted directly, and we're speaking as a general consensus because it's a research article. But while they're doing introduction, I'm thinking to myself, I've as much right to be in this call as anybody else in that room, and constantly just trying to push that through all the time to know. So again, thank you to the guy. It was actually mentioned, the gentleman's name was Nathaniel Parrish. From Forbes. He's a research development editor, and it was mentioned through the LinkedIn platform that it was noticed that through the prize there was an opportunity to speak to an industry specialist.
So for me, Rising Star really, since winning, I think my benefit or my biggest takeouts are twofold. The first one and the biggest one is personally. I think I've just gotten the right amount of confidence to be able to say, from a work perspective, from a personal perspective, I am actually capable, and it's the right pat on the shoulder to just say, now you have this platform, how do you take it, how do you really dig into what it is that you want to do professionally, how are you going to use this to, I've heard something a few months ago at a talk at Design in Durban, and this guy said, it's so wonderful, all and well, to climb the ladder very quickly, but make sure that you turn around and you drop the ladder back down. And I think this opportunity, winning this, prestigious award, gives me kind of the credibility stamp to be able to drop the ladder and to help people in whichever small way I can. It's a real confidence booster, which will then impact how I show up every day at work, how I show up when I'm trying to help other people, and in forums like this as well. It's been great.
Yeah, I think I would say for me it's the same. From a personal point of view, it reminded me, just going through the whole process really, just reminded me that there's something that I've actually been driving towards. And sometimes you get complacent, you kind of get into the day-to-day, and you're just like, yeah, okay, I'm just doing this, yes, I'm going to keep doing what I do. But this opportunity, for one, I was nominated from someone at work, which was, an honor on its own. And then to go through the process was really a reminder of actually what am I about? Where am I going? What am I doing? Am I still, and really just the journey through the different stages was, oh, okay, so I've still got it. I'm still on the right path, I've not gone short left. There's one of the things that I do is women in engineering talks, for example. So that's something that I've been doing. I'm actually back here again in November in this very same room. And I was here last year in November doing the same thing. But it really is now then there's this platform where we get to engage with other people. We get to engage with people who have gone before us. And you're never at your best. There's always room to grow. So I think that's taught me that. On the other hand, for me, from a family point of view, my 6-year-old is the proudest person of that trophy, and he's put up everything in the kitchen. But I think for me, what was really a special thing about it was, I said to my son, so I have a 21-year-old son, a 20-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old, all boys.
I thought you were 20, but okay.
So I have 4 boys, and my eldest son is working to be an actor, filmmaker, producer, and all of that. So in the process of that, one of the things we had to do was a 2-minute video. So obviously he's the person I turned to for my 2-minute video. And I was like, 1 take, let's do this. I think 20 takes later, he was like, okay. But what for me was encouraging about it is I asked him to read my essay. I asked him to do the 2-minute video. So he's been part of that journey with me. So obviously he was crossing fingers, toes, everything. And to win was kind of like, wow, like you did it. And for him, he came back and he said to me, just seeing you do it makes me think it's actually possible. Because I see you every single day. Naturally, I'm his mother. But it's to see what it's done for my children and to build their confidence as well.
That's beautiful.
Definitely. Okay, so what are you guys planning to do in order to remain relevant? I mean, now you have won the Rising Star Award. What are your plans for the future that are going to maintain your stardom, really?
The pressure.
So a colleague of mine jokes, and he says that I'm on my reign. So it's like winning Miss SA. He's like, you have a year, so what are you going to do? I think, like right now, for me, the biggest thing is to be intentional, right? So every day, and some days it's not as intentional, because Mondays, I don't know, I struggle, but they usually start at like 12. But I think the main thing is to be intentional in your actions and in your decisions, right? So I personally want to make sure that I leave an impact in my industry. Haven't quite figured out yet what and how that is, but I do think that I have a responsibility to, do one thing that's going to change either the systems where I work or create new ways of thinking within, the broader industry. But more than anything, for me, the biggest thing is empowering other people. I think that I've got a little bit of that silver certified stamp, which gives me power to just take people along the journey with me, with the little, base that I have at the moment. That would be my number one thing.
I think to use, very similar to what Roxanne was saying, to use every possible platform that does come across your path to be able to empower yourself, improve yourself, but also help those that come across your path. I think the dangerous thing about winning an award like this is that to a certain extent you want to tie who you think you are to the fact that you won the award. But it's less relevant in the sense that you went through the process, like Greeff said. It was an exceptionally self-reflective journey to actually get to the point where you stand on that stage. And it was a beautiful trophy, and it was a phenomenally important event, and the people there were fantastic. All of that was not as amazing as actually going through the process. And I think when you go through your career, and I haven't met one person whose career went from the bottom straight up diagonally 45 degrees right to the top. It's kind of like a swirly whirly, like mostly down and then up. But it's being true to yourself through all of those parts. And I think the one thing the message that I do want to take to the students in the room today is you're going to have a lot of really amazing successes in your life, and you're going to have a lot of heartbreak, and you are definitely going to be disappointed a lot. You will hear the word no a lot, and let every single no that you hear motivate the strive for the next yes. So what are we going to do with our next stardom? I think that's entirely irrelevant. I think do the best that you can with the day you have tomorrow.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so what I didn't tell you is that the same son who helped me through the process dropped the trophy by mistake.
Oh my goodness.
And he hid in his room for 2 days. But obviously it was an accident.
Yes.
It wasn't a big deal. But I think for me what it goes to say is that receiving the award really is just an affirmation as part of the journey that I'm already on. I don't think it came out of the blue. It really was just for me an affirmation of you're on the right track. So what it then does for me is it says keep at it. There's more that can be done. There's more avenues, and there's more places, and there's more ways that you can influence. And throughout the journey, one of the things that it reminded me of is my motto, which is, will the world be different because I lived? And that's something that I ask myself, not just at work, but just in my life. When I encounter you, what do you walk away with? When I work in my organization, when I leave, how dispensable am I? How much impact have I actually made in people's lives, but also in the spheres of influence that I'm in? So I think that's for me important. So yes, the trophy may be broken, but we're going to super glue it together. Don't worry, we have a plan. But in that being said, there's a lot more that I can do. This is just the beginning of it, and it's been a reminder of the potential that I have and the confidence that I need to build even further, not just in myself, but in other people, for them to become the best that they need to become in their areas of influence as well.
And I think you guys are quite transformational, you know, in your leadership styles, from the way that you've spoken to leadership, really. So what is your ideal future for South Africa? Because Rising Star is really about young people shaping the future of the country. So what is your ideal South Africa?
So my ideal South Africa is a place where the people in the country, number one, have confidence in what they're capable of doing. The one thing I keep telling people who come and visit, we had UJ students yesterday on site, and I said to them I showed them a picture of just the land that was there before the project started, and I showed them a picture of the power station that is there now. And I said, but this was built by South Africans, for South Africans. And really that's where my heart is. My heart is in developing appropriate technology that suits the African culture, that suits what this nation is about. So when I look at engineers and when I speak to engineers, I keep saying, I'm like, think local. Think, you know, we have a lot of international standards and all of these different things that we have. But when we do that, think about who's going to manufacture it, who's going to build it. Can it be built locally? Can it create employment? So when we do what we do, we should stop with a mindset of wanting to go overseas all the time, thinking it's better out there. It's not. I lived in the US for 9 years. I would not go back. I am happy here because this is home. And what I realize is that there's a lot that can be done for us as South Africans to make life speak to our culture and speak to what we need to do in the same way, at the same time, both innovative world-class stuff like what Jacques has been talking about, what they did and what they developed. Those are things that were done by us, for us. Let's keep doing that.
Yes.
Let's keep doing what works for us. Let's keep looking at opportunities that are going to advance us as a nation, because America did not become America overnight. It took the people there to make it what it is.
Yes.
It takes us to make this nation what it is.
I think if we can get to a point where we're as likely to celebrate each other's victories as we are currently just fearing the threat that we see in each other. And I don't want to go down the political stance of answering this question, but I really do believe if we can find a way that, and maybe it's an idealistic comment, but if we can find a way to really be in support of what we want to achieve, there's enough for everyone, and there could be more for everyone if we allow that to be the case. There is no magic one solution. I think if you really, in your heart, want that for the country, I don't believe that there's a single person in this room that doesn't truly, passionately love the country that we live in. It's just a matter of finding a way that, and I think, how do you start? You start small, you start internally, you make a point of engaging with people in a better way, you really listen, you don't listen to try and give the best answer the moment they stop talking, and those seem like small incremental steps, but if you don't start there, where do you start?
Yeah.
And I mean, forums like this is the perfect opportunity. Take the young leaders of our country, give them the opportunity to develop themselves, step up on those platforms and enlarge their reach, and you know, their direct social circles, sees them excel and give them the opportunity to grow through that. I'm very, very hopeful for our country, and I do believe that we have so much opportunity here. It's just allowing each other to have those victories.
Well said.
So I agree with both of you tremendously. I think they both go hand in hand, right? Let's solve our own problems, let's do things ourselves, let's empower. And just to add on to that, I think very much for me, I want to live in a South Africa that's safe, that is fair, and that is rich in opportunity. And I think through, you know, touching on both of these comments, that's how we get there. So how do we, you know, make sure the playing fields are even for everybody, that we all are exposed to the same things, so that we're safe. We're in a safe environment, it's fair, and we're all equal.
Okay.
Okay. And I mean, technology is changing the landscape in a very big way. So I'm going to pick your brains a little and ask you if you think maybe 15 to 20 years from now, with robots, analytics, and 4IR and everything going on, what are your job titles?
Sure. Okay, so when I think of the future, again, for me, it comes back to appropriate technology. You can actually Google appropriate technology. It's a whole science. There's hard skills and soft skills around it. But you know, everyone is talking now about the fourth industrial revolution, and we'll probably be in the sixth, you know. But when I look at us as a nation, I question whether we're there yet. We're probably still in the second industrial revolution, if we look at the reality of where we are, if I look at the things that we're doing. So for me, it's really assessing where we are now, and then, yes, there may be technologies that exist that we can harness that would work for us, but I think it comes back to, okay, so in the future, I want Gogo to be able to do what she does much easier than she's able to do it now. I want my mother or my uncle or my children to be able to do. So I think for me, it's looking to see what are those things that I would want to see life easier for. I'm an engineer, that should be my job, is to make life simple. Is what are those type of things? What are the type of technologies that would actually work? One of the things I know, like for example, when you go to the US, when you get to the garage, you have to put your own petrol, right?
Terrifying.
Your own gas. So you don't want that here. Can you imagine the unemployment that is going to be should we implement something like that here? It is not appropriate. So I think it's looking to see what is going to make life easier for us here, and how is it going to be beneficial for us in terms of advancing and, from an economical point of view, growing the economy. My title in the future, I'm a techie. I don't want to be a manager, so let me say technical director of some sort of something. I don't know.
I think, just coming back to the earlier comment, so we can't hide the fact that South Africa is slightly behind the curve when it comes to technological development. but if you compare it on a global scale with where it's going, and excuse me if you guys know the story. So in China, in an area called Tianjin, they have what they call ghost cities. So what ghost cities is because of the Chinese government and their ability to import steel from countries like our own, with the exportation of manganese and chrome, they keep their economy going, and obviously in a race to be the strongest economy in the world by producing steel and using the produced steel to build. So Tianjin is a ghost city because it's a city larger than Johannesburg that's built, but it has no inhabitants. And it has no inhabitants, so it's literally, and go and research this. There's I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie, I Am Legend. It's literally, it's a scene like that. So there's malls, and try and wrap your mind around that. There's malls that open in the morning at 8, and then the shop owner comes up and he opens the door and the escalators go on and the escalators run and you can hear the Christmas music in the background and he never sees a customer. And in the afternoon he closes the door and they switch the mall off and he goes home and tomorrow it repeats. So and this is not something I'm making up, this is reality, it's currently happening. Why I'm bringing that up is, I think the interesting part about where technology is going, technology is constantly going to drive towards not having to do the mundane things that you don't want to do. Yes. The challenge is, if you don't do those things anymore, you have more time to do what you want to do. The challenge is, I believe that people don't know what that is. Mm-hmm. So now you have all this time available and you don't know yourself. Yeah. So now you've got 8 extra hours because you don't have to type an email because there's an outsourced company called Fiverr that you can pay X amount of dollars per month that do all your administration. That's also, by the way, a real thing. If you've got a software development company right now, you go on Fiverr, you send them the scope of your presentation that you can pitch. There's a developer that sits in Mumbai, India with an MBA degree, costs you 50% of what you currently pay here. He devs it for you, you send it to you, and you pitch it to your company. Because this is real. This is actually happening at the moment. The challenge is now you got that 5 extra hours in a day. What do you do with it? And I think that's the important question for me is because, and I constantly come back to the fact that yes, technology is growing at an alarmingly fast rate. The human race needs to get to the point where they grow at the same rate with regards to understanding what's truly intrinsic to themselves. Maybe a controversial answer, if the technology develops to where it is now, I don't think commerce will exist the way that it currently exists. I think you're going to have titles like farmers and family members and husbands because then you actually want to be at home doing the thing that you should be doing. Yeah. Why the hell do you want to be at work? You want to be with the people that you love.
Interesting.
So I'm not as versed as my colleagues, but I do think for me, what you're saying and counteracting is exactly what I want in the next 20 years. I want technology to take care and do all the things that I don't want to do. I haven't thought about what I would be doing when not doing that, so maybe that's what I need to think about when choosing my next job title. Yeah. But that's what I see for technology in the next 10 to 15 years is do all the things that I don't want to do.
If I can maybe share this quickly. If you guys haven't read this book, please do yourself a favor, write it down. It's called The 4-Hour Work Week. The author is called Timothy, I can't call the surname, Ferrell. Tim Ferriss. So this guy's profound. So what he did, it's quite an elaborate way that he did it. He went about outsourcing his entire job in a large corporate company in the US, and he did it successfully for a 2-year period. Nobody of his seniors knew that he was outsourcing everything. If I say outsourcing everything, everything he did was outsourced. It took him a while to get there, but he did it quite successfully. The whole book writes around the fact that when you reduce the amount of time that you spend and what you should do, how you can increase the amount of time and what you want to do. And it's actually in those types of book where you realize, currently without any further development in technology as it sits now, I think we are suboptimally utilizing it by mammoth proportions. I think the focus should be less about where do we drive this technological bubble and where it's going in the future, and more be focused about what happens when we get there.
Great. Okay, so I'm just going to take 2 questions from you guys. Does anybody have a question for any of the panelists?
Good morning. Firstly, congratulations for your Rising Star Award.
Thank you.
I think listening to you this morning is really an affirmation that it's a well-deserved prize. I have 2 questions, and actually 4 questions instead of 2.
You can go for 6.
And my questions will be directed to Grace and Jacques. Okay. To you, Grace, you referred in the first part of the discussion to trust. And one will want to believe that trust is inherited in the working space. But the reality shows that it's not that evident, especially in 2 instances when you go up in the hierarchy and in difficult times where you have all this politicking and all of that. So my question to you is, the first one is so what is it that you do, or how do you consider that you trust someone? And what does it take to gain your trust, basically? And I want to avoid making it as if it's directed to your report. Let's say from your report, your peers and above you. And the second one then is, how do you deal with people in whom you have lost trust? And again, this has nothing to do with your direct report. My question to you, Jacques, you made a point about, sorry, let me just, gee, I have so many things to say that I lost. Okay, very important. You referred to discrimination in the working space, yes, saying that this is a reality.
Yes.
So my question to you as a leader, what do you do yourself to prevent or address discrimination or unethical behavior in the company where you're working for or around you? And this, again, has nothing to do with your direct report. And the second question I have for you, what advice, what suggestion will you give to industry captains, students, entrepreneurs on how to address that? What attitude to have toward unethical behavior, and especially when it comes to discrimination? Thank you.
All right, thank you for your question. In terms of trust, for one, I don't believe that trust is something that you give someone off the bat. Trust needs to be earned, and the person that you demonstrate yourself to be will speak to that. So the way that I deal with trust is, for one, I have to get to know you. Everything up till that point will be proper to the T. I think I have a reputation for being very difficult with my signature, but I will not just sign anything. It doesn't matter who you are, even my own friend. So in the workplace, I differentiate professionalism and friendships. You can be my friend, but when we are working, it's a professional relationship. I don't mix that. So for one, I won't then take personal anything that you say to me when we're in a professional environment, but I will follow the process, and we will do it the right way, irrespective of who you are. So just this week, someone asked me to say, you're always saying this person is a good worker, but look now, this person has been suspended and they're not there anymore. And I said, I'm not going to get involved in what they were doing in their personal or illegal life, if there was anything, because nothing has been proven yet. But what I will say is I know the output of what they did from a work perspective, and that is what I trust because of what I've seen in terms of the results. So I'm not there to trust you as a person. I don't know what people do outside their work hours, and I don't think I should get involved in that as far as possible. So what I do is I'm very, and they will tell you that I'm very process orientated, and we need to follow, if this is what we're supposed to do, that's what we're going to do. If you deviate from it, you're going to have to explain why, and you're going to have to document it. Because should I be audited, I need to have a clean audit. So I sit in a lot of audits, and I know how that goes. And for me, as a person of integrity, I need to protect my integrity, so I can't trust everyone around me. Really, I can't trust anyone around me. Everyone looks out for number one, right? Mm-hmm. So everyone will look out for themselves first and throw you under the bus should the opportunity show itself. But I will treat you as a professional, and I will trust that you will treat me as a professional. And that is the only trust level that I'm willing to work with in the workplace, irrespective of your level. What I have done, where I've seen that there's someone who's not trustworthy, I have gone and spoken to the necessary authorities to say, you know what, there is this tender that's coming in. I know someone who's working on the tender, and I know that they're intentionally bumping up the prices to make a bigger profit. That much I know. Unfortunately, the person I reported it to also got suspended thereafter, but that's not the point. So, but it's to say that if I see something is going wrong, and I see something that's going to damage my organization, I think it's my role to step up and say something. There's no buddy-buddy when it comes to professionalism. I'll sit with you at lunch, we'll have chats, and we'll have tea, and we'll do all of that. But I'm clear on what I'm there to do. I'm there to work, and I'm there to put my best foot forward in my organization, and I'm expecting the same from everyone else in the organization. That's the only trust that I'm expecting. what you do outside of that, that's something that you need to be accountable for yourself.
I think I'm 180 degrees the other direction. I believe that when you shake someone's hand, you don't ask them to prove their trust to you. You entrust that they won't decline the trust that you already see in them. So let me unpack that. Your question was, how do we fight discrimination? Now, discrimination is not a 3-minute conversation that you can solve the world's problems in. So I'm going to give you 2 quick examples. I do this thing at our work called Shotgun Fridays, and it's followed by Gloves Off Mondays. My direct reporting line is 25 managers that are reporting to me, and the team is quite substantial under that. Despite the managerial level, for 1 hour every Friday morning, anybody in my team, and he's pre-selected on the morning as I walk in, gets my office for an hour. You have the opportunity to do your job in my office, or you have an opportunity to address something that I'm currently busy with in that hour. The trick for me is that I also get an hour to spend at your desk. So I literally sit at the desk of the controller, or last week I was the receptionist for an hour, which was very interesting. You get some very rude people that want to dial into the company. And, but the real core crux of it happens on the Monday, and that's the Gloves Off Monday. So Gloves Off Monday is you have 30 minutes, 100% no holds bar, to tell me your opinion about where I'm currently standing as the executive in this business, how I can do my business better, also knowing that I can reciprocate and share that with you. And I want to tell one quick story, and again, it's a story that I shared with Kathleen earlier today. I've got a gentleman that works in our business. He's a controller. Now, to put that into perspective, that's a GG level 8. When you're coming out of varsity with a degree and possibly an honors degree, you'd enter into a GG level, I would say 9 or a 10, and it obviously moves up from that. His name is Madumo, and Mondi had the opportunity to be selected to take part in Shotgun Fridays, I think it was about 3 months ago, and had a good time, spent quite a lot of time. The one thing that I did notice when I was walking past my office during his hour is that he was drawing mind maps and he was making notes, and he was really like occupying the space and using the opportunity for that hour. I was very impressed by that. The Monday morning we sat down, we closed the door, and he said, I want to be 100% sure about the fact that whatever I say in the next 30 minutes is no holds bar. So I said, yeah, that's the process. He says, no, I want your word. That's the case. So, and I'm getting nervous. I'm thinking, okay, well, what is this guy about to say to me? So he starts off like this. He says, do you know that before you walk into the office, your energy introduces yourself into the office? So I said, I've always believed that. And then he says, do you realize that when you walk into the office in a cuck mood on a Monday morning, that all of us suffer for the week thereafter? This is a controller speaking to an executive of a multi-billion business saying that. So the moment he says it, a natural thing happens. I can think of 15 reasons how I can counter that argument and put him in his place. But just in that moment to take a step back, take a deep breath, and ask him to unpack that. And he had 100% a solid point. To the point where since then, I've started this. It's a silly little process, but when I get to work in the morning, I've got this ritual. I stop, I buy soy milk, a mega-sized cappuccino from Seattle. I get to the office, I put one song on, and I drink my cappuccino, and I have that prior to me walking into the chaos, with one goal in mind, walking into the office with a smile on my face. Does the smile last? Some days it does. Some days I lose that smile 3 minutes after I walked in. But the point is I walk in with a smile. And it's a long way around of answering your question, but how do you fight discrimination? You fight discrimination inside yourself. You fight, why the moment when he told me that when I walk into the office in a bad mood, do I put everybody in a bad space? Why in that moment did I want to take the role of an executive and correct him in what he was saying? That's discrimination. Discrimination and putting him in a box, and I put his opinion as a lesser value to my own to the side. You change discrimination, which is a mammoth battle, by changing your own mindset. What's the message I give to young leaders? You said to industry leaders. I think more important than industry leaders are the young leaders in the room. And it's quite ironic making this comment with where we're sitting. Get over yourself. Get over yourself. You're a rising star, and that's really, really cool. You have a lot of hard work left, and you're going to constantly have to work at it. Forget about your title. Forget about the title of whomever you're dealing across the table with. Be respectful. Be the best person that you can. And if you do the small incremental blocks, the success will come.
My name is Nolita Songa. I'm working in Eskom. I've been working there for 13 years. I just want to make some few comments since we are having our future leaders here in the room. I just to encourage them. Ever since I've started in Eskom 13 years back, Eskom is a good company, guys. Don't run away from the company. We are fixing everything, every mess. I just want to comment. The problem is that we I'm just making an example as an engineer. I'm an engineer by professional. We as engineers, or when we started working there, you start work there as an engineer, then you want to step up, you want to be one of the managers. The problem that you are having, you don't focus on your area of work. You are focusing to a person. So that person, you don't know that person, what is he busy doing. So you start signing some wrong information, some wrong document. It's when now they said people has been suspended because you must follow your trend. You must follow what you are there for. And you must know what you are there for. And don't ever think that whatever it takes long for you to grow, but eventually you will grow. Don't lean on to anyone. You must step down, you must step up for your rights. You must know what you are there for. We need this country to be built by you. Don't run away. I've been talking to other engineers that say, I'm going to this country. This is the right country to live. We are born in this country. We need to raise leaders like you guys. And as we are grown up in rural areas, for me, I'm from rural areas. When I joined Eskom, I had managers that were very ill-treating me in such a way that I wanted to resign. And one of the CEO of Eskom saw me one day and said, "Sis, you working here?" I said, "Yes." "What is your problem? I can see you are not happy." And then he said, "You must come and see my office." I started explaining my problem and said, "You run around all these companies because you will get these people to frustrate you. So I'm trying to say, I'm boosting your system so that don't let the negative energy to take away your positive energy, so that you know that we still need you here. We will fix this economy. This economy is going to be fixed by us together. And then everything is going to work for us." The other thing now, I'm saying, it's my first time to be here. I was just invited by a colleague, and I saw our boss. He said, I must join them. So I wanted to bring you that we know that we need you. And we need you. We'll fix this thing together before we resign to these companies, because these companies are not ours. These companies are yours. So we need to fix this economy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take the last question over here.
My name is Refilwe, and I wanted to ask all three of you on stage is that, we certainly know that the mark of a great leader is a leader that can process their defenses instead of protecting them. And we all know that as human beings, the one thing that really does unite us are the softer aspects of ourselves, which is something that is not really spoken about in a professional environment, The truth is that we all have insecurities, no matter what you look like, where you come from. What are some of the ways and some of the tools that you've used throughout your life when your insecurities do surface to help you to manage yourself through that instead of then projecting them on someone else, and someone especially that you can influence?
So I think for me, I fully agree with you in terms of the soft skills are important. Just to give you an example, I have a Monday morning team meeting with my team, and the meeting starts with a check-in. So the first 15 minutes of that hour is, how are you? How was your weekend? What are your pain points? How are you feeling this week? What are you excited about? What's stressing you? Before we even get into the executional stuff, because I think that then paints a picture for me to know what levels I'm dealing with for the next few days and how to address them. So from a team perspective, that's how I think I am doing okay in terms of addressing softer skills. Personally, for me, when it comes to my insecurities and things that creep up, I'm a very spiritual person, and I think that in my spirituality, I find comfort and also a way to get over that. So there's a thing where a very spiritual, like if you believe in God, what's for you is for you, and what isn't, isn't. And your path will be the way it needs to, and things will come as it needs to. So what that does for me is I can't be jealous or get insecure about other people or things that I have, don't have. People are good at other stuff that I'm necessarily not great at, or I have things to learn. And I think my spirituality gets me through that.
Thanks, Roxanne.
I think firstly, just like spitting out what it is. So whatever it is that you feel insecure about, don't fear the vulnerability to be able to put it on the table. I think personally, I'm quite a perfectionist, and I'm very competitive, and those are, it sounds like two good things to have. If you combine the two, it's not a good combination. And the challenge that you face with that is when you identify something that's possibly below par with the rest of what you can achieve, you kind of intrinsically want to try and step it up and improve that as quickly as you possibly can. But I don't think that the view should always be that you must be perfect on all levels. I think if you take all of it, if you take communication and ability to motivate and to dedicate and to drive, a leader needs one thing. He needs someone that's willing to follow him. Because without that, you're just a really good, dynamic person. And a person will only really follow you if you can show them that they are willing to go where you're willing to take them. So from an insecurity perspective, own up, face it, let it be known. And I think maybe importantly, instead of trying to always step it up in yourself, try and surround yourself with people that make up for your shortfalls. You have positive skills that they may not have, and try and focus on that cohesive unit as a team rather than being a one-man show.
Yeah, I think I would agree with what both my colleagues here have said as well. One of the things that I've noticed is you become a leader because you've come from that place. You've been through a journey. You didn't wake up and you were in that place of leadership, meaning that throughout your journey you did make mistakes, and like he said, none of us are perfect. What I have found is I typically don't necessarily talk to people at work about it. I may have friends at work, but one thing I do try and do is remain teachable and remain accountable.
That's very true.
So what I do is I have my husband. He knows me well. We've known each other since we were 16. So he will tell me when I'm off. So if I go home and I complain about something, he's going to be like, okay, but let's unpack it. And he's not always going to be on my side about it. I know he's missing the point. Sometimes.
That's his insecurity.
Sometimes, yeah, that's his insecurity. I'm still teaching him when I'm venting and when I need advice. But he's really my sounding board. He's the person that I speak to when I'm frustrated about something or I feel like I'm missing something. And I do also have friends, and I have a peer. We call each other peer coaches. It's almost like a mentoring, but at the same level. She is ahead of me, and she has really helped me with things that I struggled with. So if I'm to use an example, when I had my first child, I remember being told, oh, engineering is this thing in your life, now it's going to become this little thing. And that built like some serious insecurities because I felt like I had something to prove. So I had said I was going to cut my maternity leave into 2 months just to prove to them that engineering is important to me. But I sat with her and she said, but why would you do that? You're more indispensable at home than you are at work. Do not lose those moments because you're trying to prove something. And I went back after 5 months. But that was to say that for me, it was something that I was like, I experienced this. But to have someone that you can talk to who you have respect for and who you feel would understand, because they too are leaders in their own rights. So for me, they're also being teachable to say, okay, I went there hoping that this man was going to be on my side because he did marry me after all, but he's not, and that's okay. But we get to talk it out. And then when I go into the workplace, it's then to allow people to be vulnerable with me as well, with their insecurities. So I think a lot of the times we tend to treat people like they're machines when they drive through the gate at the office. You forget these are human beings. So there's different avenues that we can do that. We have, and at Eskom, we have the Women Advancement Program, which I'm a sponsor for at Kusile. So we get together with the ladies, let's talk, let's have a roundtable discussion about what are the things that we're struggling with, what are the things that we need to do, how can we improve it. But different from that, it's not just the ladies, we've now brought in the guys. Let's talk about what work environment is like. What are those things that are making me feel like I cannot function? So it's things like that that we have to work through. First, I work through my own stuff, outside of that. But then when I come in there, then I'll share the learnings of what my insecurities were and what it is that I've learned from that. But I think it really is to just remain teachable, always, and to remain accountable to someone, because you don't know it all every time.
The bee.
And,
This
it's the
bee
bee, and
is-
I'm like, stay still.
That was, wow, I think it was absolutely incredible. It deserves a round of applause. Well done, guys. It was, I think we all learned a great deal, and we're definitely inspired. So keep rising, and may your stardom last forever.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.